We're back again for another round of movies that have questionable backgrounds. We're
And it's
gonna
our
we're
first one for 2026.
Yes. Oh yes, yes. Even though we're gonna kind of backpedal, we were hoping to do this for Christmas, but we got a little
Mm-hmm.
behind. But we're gonna still tackle it anyway. So I think it's a pretty
Mm-hmm.
significant one
Mm-hmm.
in the realm of controversial films,
Uh,
which is we're going to look at Disney's A Christmas Carol, which
Woo.
stars Jim Carrey, the
Mhm.
incomparable Jim Carrey, along with a
Mhm.
really impressive cast of
Yeah,
actors.
and producers and just like so many big names I saw when I was like watching the credits roll. Hey,
Yeah,
buddy.
I mean, you got Gary Oldman, you got Colin Firth, you've got
Mhm.
Bob Hoskins, Robin Wright
Mhm.
Penn. I mean, wow,
Mhm.
like what a cast
I mean,
of
I saw Robert Zemeckis, I saw Alan
Zemeckis.
Silvestri. I mean, like,
Yep.
uh,
Zemeckis, the first movie he wrote on his own, actually,
yeah.
as screenwriter and director.
Mm.
He was the power force behind this one. So it was a
J-
pretty big.
Just
It was
just
like
seeing
a
like
dream
all
project for him.
I was just gonna say, just seeing all these names, I'm like, what could the controversy possibly be?
Well, and I really think in a lot of ways there
Hmm.
is. Um, I think Disney was a little bit taken aback by this version.
Hmm.
I think this is where the initial controversy is going to lie, is in how
Okay.
Disney really felt about this film,
Hmm.
being made. This is the third Christmas Carol version that Disney produced. The first
Hmm.
was Mickey's Christmas Carol in
Hmm.
85. Then they did the Muppets Christmas Carol around, what was it,
Hmm.
93. And then
Hmm.
this was the third that they did.
It was
Um,
kind of like it was the first one that definitely like didn't have like a bunch of characters standing in. You know what I mean? We
mhm,
didn't have Mickey playing,
right,
Bob Cratchit,
right.
in an animated role.
Or Kermit or any of those
Hmm.
characters. Yeah, everybody.
Yeah.
This is, and I feel, and I've said this to others, that this is the truest version of the Dickens story because
Hmm.
I really think they kept it true to the original novel as much as
Hmm.
possible. Certainly they took some liberties in there, but for the most
Hmm.
part, the way everything occurs is very similar to the book. Like most of the story takes place in the present. It's a
Hmm.
lot of what's happening now. Um,
Hmm.
until the ghosts come, which is really later into the film. Because
It's
you
not super long. I mean, it
no,
clocks in at like 95 minutes.
right. Yeah, it's tight. It goes right through. I think really the majority of what took place with the ghost was really like about a 30 minutes towards the end of the film. It was, you know,
Hmm.
um, right towards that it was probably about 45 minutes into about, the last 15, which was the falling
No,
action.
the other thing I kind of wanted to point out too, and it's another kind of head scratcher moment. This is an adaptation. I mean, this is
Yes.
something that's been adapted a ton,
I
especially
think
like you said,
probably the
they
most of any
right,
story.
right, and you already said it. Disney did it twice already,
Hmm.
so you gotta wonder what could come out of an adaptation that you're following beat by beat
Hmm.
that like they would look at this and say, "Wow, we have a problem with this or that." You know,
I, I I think when you come down to it, so I think when it comes down to is where
Mhm.
Marley shows up when the
Okay.
ghosts are there, because
Hmm.
the scenes with the ghosts are very jarring at times, especially the moment where like Marley's jaw tears open and he's like
Hmm.
moving his jaw to speak and like teeth are
Hmm.
flying out. And it's like it's very it's creepy. It's to a
Hmm.
point, which it should be. I mean, this is
Yeah.
supposed to be a moment that's the awakening of
Scaring
this
Scrooge.
man,
Yeah.
right? 100%. And I think the same thing can be said with each of the ghosts, especially the Ghost of Christmas Present. I felt was as the day, as the time progressed with that character and he started aging and then decaying and all that. I think it was, those were very haunting moments in the story, and I think that was a
Hmm.
very dark thing for Disney at the time. Anything that
Hmm.
has Disney on it, though to be fair, Disney about late 70s, early 80s was into that sort of darker period. If you look at movies
Hmm.
like Something Wicked This Way Comes or The Black Hole or any of those sorts of movies, they had a lot
Hmm.
of darkness in them, a lot of underlying things.
Hmm.
But they'd kind of lightened up their
Hmm.
image through the 90s and into the 2000s. So here
Yeah.
we are, 2009. They're taking a Scrooge adaptation, which is usually, this feel good movie by the end, and
Hmm.
really taking this character through the ringer. I mean, he is, and it's scary. I think
Hmm.
when you see this, because not only does it have the Disney name on it, but it's also animated.
Hmm.
Um, they're thinking, oh, this is for straight for kids, right? But I mean, it's definitely not for young kids. You definitely
Hmm.
would have to have some of the older kids that could handle some of those moments because I think a young kid would get scared.
Right.
This isn't the audience that's going to watch Toy Story. This is the audience, it's a little bit more,
Hmm.
older than that.
Right.
I guess, it's definitely going to be a much more uh, uh, a difficult sell for the younger kids. And I think that was something that Disney wasn't prepared for with this. I really
Hmm.
think so just a little history of this. So this is from
Yeah.
Image Movers. Image
Yeah.
Movers was founded by Zemeckis,
Hmm.
and he had originally done The Polar Express in
Hmm.
2004 in this
It
style. He
definitely
went
had like a Polar Express look to it.
Absolutely. It's that motion capture animation that, is a game, the stuff they use for game, video game design and things like that is that fluid movement. They get an actor with all those little balls on them and they can
Hmm.
really track that motion and you get a really
Hmm.
nice animation. And that's started with Polar Express. He wanted to make Polar Express. He loved the book. He read it to his kids. He's like, he wanted to make it look like the book, and he felt that was the best way to do it. And I think he was right. It really
Right.
captured the feeling of that look and feel of what that book was. So from there, that was kind of where Zemeckis kind of, he doubled down on it. He wasn't like, this is a one and done movie with Polar Express. He went on and did Beowulf. He went,
Hmm.
which was definitely an adult version of, that sort of style. So he wasn't, he's still doing animation, but that was for adults. Then he
Hmm.
goes, he did Monster House, he produced that
Hmm.
with Gil Keenan directing, who did Ghostbusters, Afterlife, and
Hmm.
Forgotten Empire. And then you had, from there he joined forces with Disney. Disney says, "Hey, we want to buy your studio. We want to bring you into the Disney family and make movies
Hmm.
with you." So the first movie with them was A Christmas Carol, and that was,
Hmm.
I think what Disney was really hoping for was to have this sort of new, they already had Pixar under their umbrella, and they had their
Hmm.
own studio. So they had these great animation houses already working for them. So why not another one that was doing something, kind of unique and pioneering a new style? But I think what happened was there, and even when Zemeckis directed his first Disney movie in 1988, Who Framed Roger Rabbit, again,
Hmm.
not strictly for kids. He was making something
No,
that
I
was
mean it was
more
PG, but like it was definitely like the PG movies where you like think maybe this should have been like PG-13.
right. Yeah, because it's
Hmm.
definitely there's a lot of double entendres and things like that adults will get, and certainly certain things that are just way over kids' heads. And I think
Right.
that's the same. That's how Zemeckis is. I think even if you watch certain things of Polar Express, there's things that he kind of slips in there to have a little fun
Right.
for the
Well, I mean,
adults.
this is the same guy who wrote for Tales from the Crypt, so you know what I
Yes.
mean, like that stuff is light for him.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's the one he directed is one of my favorites, the first one,
Hmm.
which is the Psycho Santa and All Through the House, which is like the pilot episode of Tales from the Crypt. But
Hmm.
yeah, yes, he was definitely, he's not afraid to do this sort of thing. Death Becomes Her, all of
Hmm.
those sorts of films that he directed where he was all over the place. The Zemeckis was never
Hmm.
like, Back to the Future, which was defined his career at the beginning. He wasn't
Hmm.
making those kind of movies, everything. He was always
No.
going in different directions. And I always appreciated that, him as a filmmaker. He was never, just in one sort of place like Spielberg
No,
or,
and that's
you
and
know,
I mean it's even better because he wasn't the type of director who was only good at one thing.
right.
When he was trying these other things, like he was good at those too.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. He always really knew, how to handle whatever, genre he was producing a movie for.
Mhm.
And I don't think this movie was any different. He really understood this story, and he wanted to make the truest version of A Christmas Carol, Dickens' version. And I
Right.
think he did. And I really, this is my favorite version to watch. And
It
most people
it it's
will
really
argue
good.
that.
And I mean, like one of the things I noticed about it going through having, it was my first time seeing it was, I mean, Jim Carrey, especially for like a
Hmm.
mocap thing, like
Hmm.
I'm sitting here thinking to myself, like, okay, so they're going to utilize like Jerry Lewis, like slapstick Jim Carrey, and he
Hmm.
played that role
Straight.
so straight,
Yep.
like one of the straightest roles he's ever done.
He's he really yeah he was that character. I mean, he was in,
Yeah.
and I think that was cool because
Hmm.
he even said himself, like, he really kind of modeled it after the original
Hmm.
filmed Christmas Carol, which was the Alistair Sim one, if you're familiar with that. He really
Hmm.
wanted to capture that same sort of energy because everyone loves that version. It's like one of the more popular versions that are out there.
Hmm.
So he really wanted to kind of be like that version, and I think he really did a great job.
Hmm.
Because thinking about it, when I first heard Jim Carrey playing Scrooge, I'm like, yeah, like, how is this going to work? How's he going to do
It's
this?
going to be like silly. It's not going to
Yeah,
be very serious or anything.
right.
And turns out it was like one of the more serious ones,
Yeah,
like you said.
yeah. He really, I mean, the drama was great. He carried that film, and that character in such a great way. And then he's playing the three ghosts, which I thought was very inspired to see him as each of those characters.
Oh, he
Um,
played all three
he
ghosts?
played all three of the ghosts, the
Oh,
candle,
wow.
the ghost of Christmas present. He was all of them.
Okay.
When you watch it again, you will see, and you'll start to notice his performance in there. But he's really great.
Okay.
I love Christmas present. Um, and I think because he was so, he's so big and bold, and he's like, sitting on the mountain of treasures and things like that. And
Hmm.
the booming voice and the very commanding presence I thought was great. And what I loved about that sequence was they never left Scrooge's house. It was always
Hmm.
in the room was flying over. It appeared to be flying over, London, and you'd go into each of the different places where
Hmm.
he'd see. And I thought that was really great that they were able to kind
Hmm.
of use a very simple effect to to tell that part of the story.
It's
Um,
sort of ironic too, because like, if you're filming something live action and you want to kind of keep things to a small space, trying to
mhm,
like utilize like one setting as a bunch of settings makes sense. But when you're making something animated and
mhm,
you don't have to do that, and you still find a way to do that in a compelling way,
mhm,
it's it's almost like overcoming an even bigger challenge, like one that you didn't
mhm.
even think of, like as
Yep.
something you'd see.
Yeah, I agreed. Yeah. And
Hmm.
one of the big controversies was the Jim Carrey casting. From the
Okay.
beginning, Zemeckis wanted Jim Carrey. He's like, that's who I
Okay.
want to play. Disney
Hmm.
did not want him. They actually were pushing for Owen Wilson, oddly enough, which seems like such an odd choice. Not that he's a bad actor, but he's not Scrooge. I can't see him playing that sort of role. Not
Right.
not not in a way that would be, I think, the dramatic way that they wanted to do it either, because he's
Well,
got sort of that, I don't know,
I
that
mean,
kind of
I could say the same thing about Jim Carrey before watching the
true.
movie, but
That is true.
yeah.
But they did offer it to him. He did go with Disney's push and offered it to Owen Wilson, but Owen said he wasn't right for the part and turned it down.
Oh.
So that's when Jim Carrey was offered right after that. So it worked
Mhm.
out for Zemeckis in the end to get who he wanted. But to be able
Mhm.
to get, all these other great actors. I mean, Gary Oldman, right off the bat. I mean, that's such a great get for a movie like this. Because I mean, this is
Yeah.
a guy that's, I mean, he's everything he's in, he's just always so, he's larger than life. It seems like
Hmm.
in almost every role. So I think he must have had a blast just saying, "Hey, I'm going to be an animated character," and uh,
Yeah.
just having fun with that the
Run around in the
mocap and all.
mocap suit. Yeah.
Right? Yeah, I can imagine. But and you had Carrie Elways,
Hmm.
who he's great because you don't even recognize him because they didn't make his character look anything like him. He's like the guy that came in asking for a donation on
Yeah,
Christmas
yeah, yeah.
Eve
From the
from
for the
Scrooge.
orphanage.
Yes, the heavy set gentleman that was Carrie Elways.
No.
Um, and I love that, we got to see Zemeckis reteam with Bob Hoskins, who he did with Roger Rabbit,
Mm-hmm.
which was nice.
Oh,
So it was,
love Bob Hoskins.
yes, and he was great as Fezziwig,
Mm-hmm.
in that part. But yeah, I think in some of the other things too, they actually did a lot with Fred, more with Fred that a lot of other adaptations don't typically tackle, like with him and his wife, seeing
Mm-hmm.
them sort of together. A lot of versions kind of ignored that. Typically, they do the version where on Christmas Eve or Christmas Day, Scrooge goes over to Cratchit's house, and
Mm-hmm.
that's what usually the movies do. But the book, he doesn't do that. He goes to his nephew's house,
Mm-hmm.
and
I've seen versions where they do both too, like where
yeah,
he does the whole like get me a goose thing, goes there,
mhm,
whatever, sees Tiny Tim, but then
yeah.
goes to the nephews after.
Yeah, yeah. Typically, because in the book he does not go to Cratchit's that day.
Mm-hmm.
He goes the next day to the office and gives them the raise and all of that stuff. Um, but yeah, so again, one of the reasons I like this version is because it is very true to the original book,
Mm-hmm.
the Dickens book, and
Okay.
that was what they were going for. They wanted to make the most honest adaptation of that. So, and again, I
Okay.
think that again, Disney probably was not as keen on that. Disney likes to have things a certain Disney way, and
Mm-hmm.
I think Zemeckis really pushed this version. And I think they, to a degree, they're like, well, Zemeckis, he's a proven director, let him do his thing.
Mm-hmm.
But I think when the final film came out, they didn't really know how to market it. I think it was a
Okay.
difficult, kind of sell for them because again, it's not a kids animated movie.
Mm-hmm.
Um, And and again, it's not, but it has Disney attached to it. And typically what Disney would do is if it wasn't a movie that didn't fit the Disney model, they would tuck it in under one of their other studios. Like Roger Rabbit went through Touchstone. And Nightmare Before Christmas originally went through Touchstone.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't
Yeah.
through Disney. Now it's Disney. You see when you see it,
Yeah.
but at the time they didn't know what to do with that. And I think the same thing happened here, but they still kept it under the Disney banner.
Yeah.
And they I, though to be fair, this movie went up against some pretty stiff competition that year.
So this was '09, right?
Yep. So
What
the
else
bit
was coming out in '09?
Avatar was released in
Oh,
'09,
gee.
in
And
December of
they
'09, and it pretty
and
much
they didn't
clobbered everything.
and they didn't own it yet, so that was actually
Right.
real competition.
Yes. Yeah, you
Mm-hmm.
had that. You had the Downey Sherlock Holmes movie. There was like a few that came out that
Mm-hmm.
year that gave it some pretty stiff competition. But Avatar, everybody was going to see it. Who's going to be like, oh, let's go see this Disney movie or Avatar where everybody's talking about.
I will raise my hand and say though, I to this day have never seen an Avatar movie.
It's funny and
Yeah.
we could almost do a whole show about that, but Avatar is
Hmm.
is interesting in the way that there are these huge movies that have left zero cultural footprint anywhere.
It's yeah, well, not for us anyway. I mean, I always hear that they're like way bigger in China. I don't
Probably,
know
yeah.
if they've left any footprint there either, but
Well, to me, like a cultural footprint is like you take a quote from the movie, something
mhm,
from that movie that always kind of sticks with you, but there's nothing in that movie
mhm,
that sticks with me. Like I've seen the
mhm,
movie and I've
mhm,
seen the first one a couple times. I've seen the second one once, but I haven't seen the new one. But
mhm.
I can't. If you ask me certain things, like when I rewatch it, I'm like, I forgot this part happened, or I forgot this happened. I'm like, oh, okay. There's certain things that just
Mhm.
I don't remember. That's how that movie kind of works. It's weird how it just doesn't sink in. Like, I
It
mean,
just never really it didn't ever really like appeal to me and when it first came out, and then when it was like highest grossing movie of all time before like Endgame came out and
yeah,
like came past it.
yeah,
It almost was like well, I definitely don't want to support this now because I don't want it to like mar that record. And then
right.
come to find out,
It did.
when movies re-release, they any of those box office numbers get added to the
Yep.
the original, and
It's
in
just
turn, Avatar retook its spot past
right.
Avengers. I'm like, son of a gun.
Yeah, right. I
Um,
know. I agree. I agree.
yeah.
So yeah, but backpedaling onto this though,
Hmm.
yeah, again, stiff competition. Disney, I think, again, wasn't sure how to. If you watch some of the old trailers or any of the old commercials from it, they were definitely much more lighter and, kind
Hmm.
of this upbeat sort of, oh, this Disney
Hmm.
animated movie. Um, but it's not that movie. It's a much darker
Hmm.
version of that story than most of the other Disney versions you'll see.
You
And
wonder too if like, the people that did end up seeing it and then like, talk to others and they're like, oh yeah, I saw the commercial for that. And you're like, it wasn't like that.
yeah,
That trailer is very misleading.
yes, I
Be
I bet word of
careful.
mouth might have hurt it in the end because I took
Hmm.
my kid to see it. They were shitting their pants because the
Because they were
Marley
scared, yeah.
scene were terrified of.
Hmm.
It's seriously, I was always hesitant to let my kids watch it at first because I thought maybe
Hmm.
that would be a bit much.
Hmm.
Until they started watching Stranger Things. And I'm like, okay, this is
Yeah, yeah.
nothing. Like, oh, this will be nothing to you.
No.
But yeah, I this so I think after the box office of this came in, Disney was kind of thinking, well, maybe this isn't what we want to do. So there was already another movie in production. They had already they had two movies going. They finished this one. This one
Mm-hmm.
was released. They had a second film they were working on called Mars Needs Moms. I don't know if you're familiar
Hmm.
with, which we could do an entire show on itself. This one was the follow-up, so in 2011, this one was released and it
Hmm.
tanked hard. But
Hmm.
that movie was not the reason that ImageMovers went under. It had already said
Oh,
in 2010, we're done with
really?
ImageMovers. So after this movie, like a few months after this was released, probably like 4 months after, they said we're done. We're going to part ways with ImageMovers. We're done with it. That's it.
Okay.
And that it pretty much the first movie they produced. And they were done and they pretty much said that it didn't fit with their business model of what they were looking to do in future movies. So they were pretty much done,
Yeah.
which kind of stinks because I really think, Zemeckis had an interesting model going on himself, with these because
Hmm.
I mean my kids love Polar Express. Every Christmas
Hmm.
that's a must watch. I and every Halloween I love Monster House. I watch that every year. I think it's a wonderful animated film. It takes
Hmm.
place during Halloween and Christmas
Hmm.
Carol. I love watching every year, so I really liked a lot. Mars Needs Moms is actually not a bad movie. It was actually a lot of fun. In the end, and Beowulf was a really interesting adaptation of that story. So I liked all the stuff he did with that.
Yeah.
It's just now, but now he's pretty much done. He walked away from that, and he's back doing a lot of other interesting films. But I would have liked to have seen where he could have gone with this had Disney kept their agreement and continued on with the studio, to see what sort of movies he might have produced. And I think we could have seen some really interesting,
I
whether
I
it,
actually think that like they could have in the vein of how they started doing some of these like live action Disney movies,
mhm,
they
yeah,
they almost could have gone the other way on some of them too, where they took like maybe some live action concepts and threw like the people that were maybe getting a little old for
mhm,
the roles, but like, could still voice the characters.
sure,
I
yeah,
I could easily have seen like a Pirates of the Caribbean in this type of animation,
yep, I
or
agree.
you know, this one might even be a stretch, and this one could be its own show too. But oh God, what was there was a John Carter of Mars? Did
Oh
that
God,
that end up being
John
a Disney
Carter.
movie?
I love John Carter,
Yeah,
and that we need to do an episode on
yeah.
that.
But that
That
that you know what I mean? Like some of these live
yes,
action properties that aren't
yes,
necessarily like the well known ones could have
hmm
had like the reverse animation like done with this, and it
yes.
probably would have been cool.
I agree. I think something
Hmm.
like John Carter would have been a great
Hmm.
subject for this, or they could have even said, "Hey," because there's been certain properties that have
Hmm.
not been able to be recaptured, and Disney proved that with
Hmm.
one, but like Lone Ranger,
Hmm.
they tried to relaunch it, but I think something like this might have been much more effective with that, or Flash Gordon, or Buck Rogers, or these sort of 30s serialized characters that they've tried to relaunch number of times over the years and just have fallen flat.
Ron.
Right, Tron is another one that Disney has struggled with
Hmm.
trying to be successful with, which I
Hmm.
have not seen the new one, but I loved the other two. I really liked
Hmm.
what they did, but I just Disney just for I don't know what it is, but they always struggle with that franchise. And that might have been more efficient, yeah, in this world. I mean, to do all the instead of doing it in live action, but
I
making
mean
the
that especially because I mean it's got the
uh-huh,
look for like being in like the
mhm.
video game virtual world thing.
Absolutely. You could really capture. They did a TV series called Tron Uprising that was on, and it looked
Hmm.
very similar to that. I mean, it was
Hmm.
more 2D-ish, but it
Hmm.
had that sort of motion capture vibe to it.
Hmm.
I think if like anything like those Marvel animated shows, like the What If series,
Oh yeah,
it has
sure.
that same kind of look to it, where
Yeah,
it's really
it's like a
fluid
cell, like
animation
a
and
cell shaded sort of
yes,
look.
yes, but the
Hmm.
animation is just so fluid and
Hmm.
I think if they had done it more as a mocap, it probably would have been that that much cooler to see him in that
Hmm.
computerized world like that. And you could easily do a series and anything like that, I think.
Right.
But yeah, and it's sad to say that this movie was the one that kind of like the first film they produced together was the one that sort of ended
First
this
and last.
agreement. Yeah, this
Hmm.
agreement they had, which was a shame because I mean, it's great. It is,
Hmm.
I think, one of the few, like, again, Christmas Carol versions that I will definitely watch. Like, I want to see this one. I mean, I love all the Muppets is great. All the other ones are great, but
Hmm.
this is the one I make sure I watch. You know,
Hmm.
if I miss another one or whatever, but this one I want to see because I really feel like this one captures that whole, Charles Dickens vibe
Sure.
um, that a lot of the other ones didn't. And
Hmm.
I feel like, that and I'm not sure if that's what sort of turned a lot of people off to it.
Hmm.
Um, and maybe that's why it wasn't such a box office, you know, success that it should have been.
Hmm.
But there's the thing that, and again, I mentioned Marley before, when
Yeah.
the Gary Oldman Marley part, where the
Hmm.
jaw drops. When I was a
Uh-huh.
kid, I remember watching a version on TV, with my family. This was
Yeah.
back before streaming and all that wonderful stuff in the 80s. And I remember watching this, and I think it was the one with Alec Guinness, which I have not seen in probably decades. But there was a sequence where Marley unties the strap around his head and his jaw just
Hmm.
drops open. And that always haunted me as a kid. But it was the one reason I loved that version was because of
Hmm.
how creepy Marley was. So when I saw this version, I was like, oh, it just brought that memory back to me. And I
And
loved seeing it in this movie.
I didn't have a problem with it being like darker
Mhm.
because I mean it almost kind of makes up for the versions that pacify them when you're like
Yes.
this is supposed to be scaring a man to make life change. So, if you use kid gloves, why is he going to change?
And I think they
Hmm.
have to because at the
Hmm.
same time, you're talking about a man who is in his, I think he's supposed to be in his 60s or 70s or something like that.
Hmm.
But he's older. So he's been this
Hmm.
way for decades. So you
Yeah, so
can't
you
just,
really got to do something to make that like effective.
yeah, you really got, I mean, it's got to be the jolt to really,
Hmm.
change his perspective on things. And that, I think this version does it effectively because when and I know I've like because the part with the Ghost of Christmas Future, where he sees his himself dead or his tombstone or whatever, and then again gets
Hmm.
pushed into there. That's supposed to be the scene that really changes him. It really just finally it's like, okay, I see it. I don't want this.
Right.
But I feel like in every other version I've watched, I always feel like that's the scene that doesn't really give it like I don't feel it at that moment. But in this
Hmm.
version, I did. Like I'm like, I feel like he is finally at that moment where he's like, I've
Ready
had
to
it.
change.
I'm no more, man. I'm good. I'm on out. I'll be the best person I'm gonna be, that sort of
Yeah.
moment. And like I love to, and I know this is one of the things that they changed to with the Ghost of Christmas Future, when he shrank to the smaller size. And
Hmm.
he's being chased through the city by the carriage and the horse-drawn carriage and the spirit.
Right.
And he runs and he goes into the home of his housekeeper and her husband, And
Hmm.
you know, he's kind of watching them and what they say about him, and they're, you know, there's no rat there. There's that whole sequence, which is kind of interesting. I always loved how they did it. I think that was kind of an interesting take on that because it really
Yeah.
took it in you know, it really pushed him to that edge where he was, you know, he was kind of at that moment where he, you know, he had to change or he needed to change. So I thought those were really good additions to that. Or
Yeah,
even
I
this.
mean, I was gonna say that the changes, see, well, other than like the tone that we were kind of talking about, the
Mhm,
changes are very like subtle, minor things. I mean, because if you stray too far, then people are gonna say that you didn't really adapt it.
mhm.
So, but
But
if you stay too close, then you're like,
yep,
okay, well, you did the exact same thing as every other one, so why did you
right.
do it?
Yeah,
So,
I think too it added to a more visual style too, because I mean this is the technology's there, you know, you
yeah.
can do grander things. I mean, that opening sequence where the credits are rolling and you're just kind of
Hmm.
flying over London is
Hmm.
amazing. I mean, they just recreated, you know, 1800s London and it's beautiful. You know, so
Right.
that I thought was, you know, a great use of that technology. And then you
Hmm.
have that sequence like with the candle where he puts the extinguisher over the top of it and then he's launched into the sky, you know, and he
Hmm.
flies over the past the moon and stuff. I mean, those are all really nicely visually done. You know,
Yeah.
I thought added a lot more to that. That you know, the just the just the whole visual style of the
Yeah.
film.
I mean, it definitely was. Like, I don't. I and maybe this is just me, like the Ghost of Christmas Present and Future, you look the same as you usually see him. I don't remember the candle being like a common motif for the Christmas past.
Typically it was a woman, you know, that would take him around and this and that. But
Hmm.
I think the idea was Jim Carrey was playing all of these spirits, so they wanted him
Hmm.
to kind of capture that. There's a
Embody
one
it how he wanted.
I what I liked about that uh the Ghost of Christmas Past was when they did the face changing and you saw all the faces of the
Yeah,
people.
yeah, just before they finished, yeah.
I thought that was a really effective moment too, that you know, was visually strong and
Yeah.
striking at that point. So there was a lot of really neat things that they did to kind of push that, you know,
Hmm.
that change for Scrooge in there, which was great.
Hmm.
Um, the there was a lot of too. I was reading some of the trivia on it that the Scrooge falls down. I think it was about 85 times was the number.
Oh
And
my
they said
God.
that the idea was because he was always above people that he was constantly falling and that those moments were humbling him more and more. So his character was sort of getting to that, you know, I'm you know, I'm beaten down and I'm ready to change sort of moment. Um,
Right.
I thought too there were some fun things too. And I don't know if this was I'm assuming was kind of intentional, but like when you know, Cratchit's sliding on the back of the carriage and then
Yeah.
Scrooge does it at the end. It was a little nod to Back to the Future, where
Hmm.
Marty does that on the skateboard on the back of the cars
Yeah.
and trucks.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if that was, but I want to think there was that because technically this is a time travel story because he's going to
Ooh.
the past,
Ooh.
the present, the future. I mean, it's time travel, and
Are, are we sure? I didn't see any DeLoreans or
there could
time
have
trains.
maybe it's a carriage, who knows? But
Maybe.
you know, it is kind of there. So I don't know if he was kind of making a little nod to, hey, I did my time travel
Right.
series. Here's a
Right.
little nod to that by doing some
That'd be
simple things
cool.
like that. So it could possibly be, but that was I
Yeah.
thought a pretty cool little moment, a little sequence.
Yeah.
Um, but I think too, like some of the other things, again, like with the you know, just the idea of being able to create the entire world that he created, the just the look of everything, the feel of everything, and how everything just really you know, clicked visually, and then just the performances of each of the actors. Like Colin Firth is
Hmm.
fantastic as Fred,
Always.
and you know, Oldman obviously, yeah, great.
Hmm.
But you know, Carrey obviously carried the movie. He stole the movie because, and I think that was the biggest surprise is you didn't think he would, but the
Right.
just the look of he had the look, he had the performance, everything was great there. And it's definitely worth watching, even if you're not a Carrey fan. I mean,
Yeah.
he's far enough removed from his usual performances that you can watch this and be
Right.
like, this is different than what he normally does. Like you watch
Definitely.
The Grinch, he's still Jim Carrey. You know, he's kind of having
Yeah.
fun, he's being a little goofy, and it's what makes the movie uh
Right.
effective. But in this one, he's like, I'm playing this straight. I'm going to do this as if this was, you know, Dickens directing me and you know, writing it with me in mind. And I think that he did a fantastic job
He
doing that.
definitely did.
I mean, I love the opening of the film when you see Marley dead, and that's something that you don't usually see. A lot of versions
Mhm.
kind of just it's already happened, they just mention it, but you actually
Yeah.
see him there, and he's got the coins on his eyes, and even before he takes it, you know, you get that moment where he takes the coins off his eyes and he's like, Dubbins is Dubbins, you know, and rubbing them in his hand there. And, but
Yeah.
it's a great moment because it shows what kind of person he is. And then the funeral director is holding out his hand for the tip, and he hands him one, and his hand's still out, and he's like, "Rrr," he's just like that. Yeah, he's just
It
doesn't
it
want
hurt him to
that
do
one.
it.
Yes, I think all those things help to make that a much better, you know, it really established that character more, you know. I mean, you could sit there and yell at Cratchit, don't use any more coal, don't do this,
Yeah.
and that's fine, but I think these
Hmm.
moments really show that miserly, stingy, really just, it doesn't matter who you are. I am not, you know, I'm this terrible, awful guy, no matter who you are. I'm
Hmm.
not just stepping on people that work for me. I'm everybody's enemy, you know, and that's, I think,
Yeah.
was really important. I mean, just walking by like the carolers on the street, they quietly stop singing until he passes, and then they start singing again.
Yeah.
Like those are
Yeah.
moments that really help to establish what kind of character he was, and I think that was great. So, any
Agreed.
any final thoughts or any final you know, ideas on the film?
I
I love
think
that
that
this was your first time, and
yeah.
that's always
Mhm.
exciting that you get to see some of these things for your first time and
Yes.
experience
I
them.
think that this one is going to be like a rare sort of like, I don't want to say a miss, but like some of the things that we've talked about are just, sort of you can't argue about the, thing that's controversial about it, like Waterworld, the budget was this high, this,
Hmm.
what I mean? Like these are
Right.
factual things. Because Disney is, very showmanship, very
Hmm.
like they care about their reputation and stuff.
Yes.
I
Yes.
get that this probably wasn't like a critical success like they would want, but I think that if it, the factors of it coming out when it did had been different, I could really see this one having been more successful because it's
Hmm.
not a bad movie, it's not a bad
Mm-mm.
adaptation, it's tonally great. There really isn't anything wrong with it that I
Right.
can see other
Hmm.
than just timing. I mean,
Yeah.
that was the
Yeah.
biggest thing against it, which it's not its own fault. Like you can't. What are you gonna do? Pull it and save it for the following Christmas?
Right. Right. Exactly. Yeah.
Release
Eh,
it straight to video? Like what are you
right.
gonna do?
Right.
So.
And I think to some degree,
Hmm.
Polar Express kind of suffered from some of that. Polar Express was a success. It wasn't a flop or anything, but Polar
Hmm.
Express took a lot of critical you know, beatings from not just critics themselves, but from audience people saying, like, they always said that the characters' eyes look so hollow or dead. They were just so they couldn't get past the fact that they moved so realistically, but they
Hmm.
weren't real. And I think that was a hard thing to swallow. But now people look back on it and it's a classic.
I think I prefer that. Like that helps remind me that like, hey, I'm watching something that's really good, like
Mhm.
animation, but again,
Yeah,
it's animation.
exactly. Yes, yes.
So.
Like I never had an issue with that when I watched it.
Hmm.
And and again, it's one of those movies that I think has become a classic.
Hmm.
You know, it's reshown every year. A lot of theaters will play it, and
Hmm.
so it definitely has that kind of repeat appeal. But this movie is not one that's been embraced like that. I'm hoping at some point people will revisit it or at least give it a chance and
Hmm.
say, "Hey, this isn't as bad as I thought it might have been." Um,
Hmm.
because I think that you know, like most films, it just needs that kind of second viewing. The first viewing is
Hmm.
going to be a little bit off. I think you're going to have to watch it a second time to just really get that feeling. Not to say that you can't the first viewing, you
Sure.
know. But I think for most audience people, the first time might be a little bit like, I'm watching this. Is this Jim Carrey? This is too much. But you got to kind of get like step away from that. Say, this isn't
Mm.
Jim Carrey. This is Scrooge. Let me watch it
Right.
like that. And I think you'll see a much more effective movie and a really, really good adaptation of the story. And it's definitely solid. Like Zemeckis is top of his game in this one. It's great. Definitely
Mhm.
worth a watch. I mean, just Zemeckis has always been really good with
Right.
moving the camera, really telling the story through that lens. Like, I mean, he's a student of the school of Spielberg. He
Hmm.
Spielberg really helped form his career, and he took a lot of cues from him. So if you really watch the evolution of his films from some of his early stuff, like Used Cars, or to Romancing the Stone, to Back to the Future, you can see how his style changes and how he becomes so much more fluid with that camera. Watching this, it's like it's second nature to him. So he really
Right.
knows what to do with that camera. So he tells such an effective story that way. And I think that's, something that once you really, again, take yourself away from the fact that this is Jim Carrey or any, you're gonna see a really good Christmas film right here.
Yeah.
So hopefully, one day it'll get that recognition.
Sure.
Hopefully.
I hope so too. I mean, like it's I'm glad I saw it, and I could definitely see adding it to my like regular Christmas repertoire.
Yes, it's well worth it. To be honest with you, watching it on the evening of Christmas Eve is just perfect. It's like a great movie to watch if you're just sitting at home waiting for, to go to bed or whatever, to get up for
Hmm.
Christmas opening presents the next morning. This is just a great movie to watch that night before. It just really captures that feeling. I love when I remember going to see it in theaters. I went and saw it at night, and that was, it just, I like that vibe that I get from that when watching it in the dark, I guess, in the evening.
Nice.
But this was the first 3D movie that Disney released, animated movie, 3D
Ooh.
animated movie. So that's a little piece of history for it too. It started that before they started the re-releases and all their other
Hmm.
animated movies that got 3D releases from there. But this was their first. So 2009. So again, it was really pioneering a lot of things for Disney, but it sort of got brushed aside uh, because of its, I think just because it wasn't what Disney was wanting or what they were hoping it would be.
Hmm. I could see that. I mean, yeah, I mean, there's always a flurry of variables, against why some of these things, become controversial.
Sure. Yeah, and it's too bad. I think if in like you were saying, Disney's very image driven, and this was at a time too when Disney was really, I don't want to say they were struggling, but they're really trying to find that thing that
Hmm.
would really put them at the top. It was before they purchased Marvel, or right about the time they were purchasing
Right
Marvel,
about
I
the
think
time,
they.
because we'd already
So
had Iron Man 1.
right, yes, at this point. So they were, I think they were kind of in the talks of doing that. It was before they purchased Star Wars, Lucasfilm and all that stuff. So Disney was still trying to find that thing. And they struggled for a while until, but now they've obviously kind of got their empire, and they're they're well secure there. But I think that if things had been a little different, like you said, I think this might have done, there might have been more of these sorts of films or something more with this film that could have been.
Hmm. Definitely.
uh, but would you recommend this then?
I
You're
would.
saying good.
I definitely would. Yeah.
Yeah, me as well. I definitely would say if you've never seen it,
Hmm.
watch it. If you've seen it once and you didn't really know how to feel about it, or you had you're a little hesitant, give it another viewing. I bet the second one you're going to really see a lot more and appreciate it a lot more.
Hmm. I agree. I would agree with that.
Yeah. All right.
Mm.
Well, the great, a great movie that I think hopefully people will give a second chance, or at least a first chance if they never saw it.
Mhm.
But yeah, so it's a fun movie to see, fun movie to talk about.
Cool.
And again, it's another one that I like to introduce to people that I know that have never seen it. It's like, check it out. It's something worth watching. So, but yeah, we'll have to figure out what our next adventure will be or where we're heading next. So maybe we should hit some bigger box office-y type movies and see where we can go from there.
I got an idea for one, but I'll ask you after if there's actually anything controversial about it.
Cool. Yeah, I bet. Oh, I'm sure we can find something there.
All
All right.
right,
So
guys.
yeah.
Catch you guys
So
next Clash of Cinema.
all right.